Good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Al, could we begin with roll call?
Benson.
Here.
Sarda. Here. Hoffner.
Present.
Minor.
Here.
Moser.
Here.
Schramm.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
City Manager Leon.
Here.
Assistant City Attorney Hopden.
Here.
Before we proceed, I should note that we have two commissioner birthdays tomorrow. Commissioner Schramm and Commissioner Hoffner. Happy birthday. Yeah, I was going to say the same age, right?
This is finally the year I'm gonna skip it. Come to that point, you know.
We all get to that point, I assume.
What was over me?
Well, I hope you have fun. Happy birthdays. Next, you have before you the minutes of the regular meeting of May 28th, 2019. What is your pleasure?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion of the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next, you have before you the schedule of bills. What is your pleasure?
I move we pay the bills.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion of the bills? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission about any of our bills? All right, roll call.
Minor.
Aye.
Moser.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hoffner.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye. Motion passes. Now we'll have the city manager's report.
Honorable Mayor, members of the commission, staff, Ed. Just a few things for you this evening. Wanted to remind everybody that our mission is to provide exemplary experiences, services, and spaces that create opportunities for everyone to learn, engage, and thrive. And so that's what we're aimed to do this week. We're going to focus on that. Starting with the fact that we did receive, as you probably heard, our federal disaster declaration from the president. So now that that's in place, we'll start to move ahead with that process of trying to access funds, talking with our FEMA folks, our Office of Emergency Management, and our state offices of emergency management, and start drilling down on what programs we may access. Very timely, as we are in the very middle of our budget sessions at a staff level, so we'll be able to get some estimates and then probably be able to talk about some potential programming with you when we get to our budget meetings. And speaking of your budget meetings, June 24th is the date of our next regular city commission meeting. We're going to start early with our budget session. We'll be here in this room. If you could join me at 5:15, we'll have some food, and we'll start with the capital budget proposal. And we'll keep working until the time of your regular meeting at 7 o'clock. We'll conduct that business, and then you can decide if you want to continue on if we haven't finished, or if you would like to meet on Tuesday the 25th. We'll make that decision. We'll also be going over outside agencies. All of the outside agency requests are in your Dropbox as well as in SharePoint. And I'm just segueing, not SharePoint, OneDrive. Segueing now to OneDrive. I think everyone's set up now on OneDrive. If you're not, or you have questions, we do not have an executive session afterwards, so perhaps Dwayne can help answer any questions if you still have some regarding how to access OneDrive. I don't know if you're like me and you have hundreds of these in your household, but I want to remind you and the public that we are no longer recycling these clear plastic bags. Millennium Recycling will not take these plastic bags, so I encourage you to either throw them in your solid waste, the black container, or better yet, use them for something. I've gotten a lot of interesting suggestions on what a person could do with these, but we will be doing something fun on Facebook to get some ideas out there what you can do. When you go to Hy-Vee, you can do what I try to remember to do so I don't end up with 100 of those. And I think you can buy shoppers right at Hy-Vee, or maybe even the other places to get groceries. But cut down entirely on those, and they won't even go into our landfill. So please be helpful in reminding folks not to recycle those. We have a number of employees who are deployed right now. Thank you to those of you who have brought in goodies for them for some care packages that you're going to send off to them, i.e. Colleen's going to send. You have until Friday if you'd like to bring something by. No chocolate, please, or if you do bring chocolate, know that will be confiscated by the front desk, and we will eat that. Thank you, Commissioner Hoffner. Just a quick update on the mall hotel, the hotel at the mall area. We have been made aware that the contractor or the owner is going to meet with their contractor, and they will be giving, that's supposedly happening tomorrow, so they'll be giving us a construction update as soon as they have a chance to talk with their contractor. So we should know a little more yet this week. I know a lot of people are curious as to what's happening now that it's dry enough to have construction. So as we discussed, the financing is in place to our knowledge, so they'll be working with their contractor. As a reminder, that is not a city project. We can't go out there and start swinging hammers, or we would have done that a long time ago. So that's the latest that I know on that. Also, we had a reconfirmation of some good news at the airport in regards to funding, and we don't always have good news when it comes to funding, so I would like Mr. Mingo to share that with you all this evening.
Thank you. Some of you may have heard a couple of weeks ago that we were on the short list for possibly receiving some special one-time only supplemental funds out at the airport for the reconstruction of our crosswind runway. We got confirmation last Tuesday in a meeting with FAA and State Division of Aeronautics that we did in fact receive a 100% grant for that project. So that is really good news. It was a competitive process. There were only 2 projects in South Dakota selected. We were funded in the second round, so it was even more competitive because they funded all the big metropolitan areas in the first round. And what we were waiting for was confirmation as to what percentage of grant funding it was going to be, and we did make the cut. One of 2 in South Dakota that got the 100%. What made that happen was we had a project that was basically ready to go. It was in our airport layout plan, and we had preliminary engineering done, and that was one of the critical things they were looking for. They were also very specific to the types of projects that they would consider. Runways obviously always being FAA's priority over and above many other types of apron or terminal building projects. What does that mean for the state of South Dakota and the city? It means that the feds are going to pay for $2.3 million, 100% of our crosswind runway reconstruction project in 2020. That's $230,000 of match that doesn't need to come from the state and the city, 115 of which would have been our responsibility in either 2021 or 2022. So good news all around on that, and a lot of people worked real hard to get us in that position.
Well, thank you, Dave, and all the staff involved in that process. We know that grant proposals are an art, not a science, and so it takes a lot of, it helps with your experience and your talents to help make that happen, so thank you.
Mayor, I have nothing further for the commission, but I'll stand for questions.
I did want to ask about the engineering studies we have going on for the trail system. Are those nearing, like the first round, is that nearing completion? Will that be available for our budgeting process?
We will have numbers for your budget. I don't believe they will be entirely complete, but we will have some solid numbers. Many of those are going to impact this year's budget, 2019, so we'll have to make some accommodation. And then we'll have some discussion about the breadth and depth of engineering that you want to have done. You know, there's a lot we could do for future possible events. Part of it's going to be a determination of how much you want to go into the process and what types of hazards, how do you want to try to mitigate with, and you know, engineering is the first step of even a more expensive step, which is a project. So we're going to have some recommendations for you all, which will likely be the immediate projects in the next couple years, and then some long-range planning in our capital improvement fund.
Are there any other questions for the city manager? Well, thank you very much for those updates. Next is public appearances, and this is a time for persons wishing to address the commission about items not on our agenda to step forward to the podium. We do have one scheduled public appearance tonight, and that is from Officer Preston Chrissy. So if you would step to the podium, or Chief Harris, if you want to introduce him.
Come on up. Honorable Mayor, members of the commission, one of the things that I wanted to have happen is you get a briefing on the success of our SRO program. We've been in a full year in that program now. We just made a presentation to the school board at 5:30 this evening, and I'll let Officer Chrissy go through all the details of what he accomplished this year.
Thank you, Chief. Once again, I'm Officer Chrissy. I'm a full-time police officer here in the city of Yankton. This is going to be my third year here at the city. So my wife and I, obviously, we just live right down the street here, so we're excited about living in our hometown because that's what you do. You move closer to your wife's family. So, so basically, just a little insight about the SRO program. This is my first year. And I've had prior experience or law enforcement prior to being in the school, at other counties. And so this is much of an eye-opener for me as it is probably for faculty and staff at the school district. But you're dealing with juveniles and not adults or anything like that. But something I wanted to touch up on is that with the SRO program, the basic foundation of it is to get us to have a good working relationship with our school, the faculty, the students, parents, and then the community as well. And it's a collective thing with the city and the school district to have such a unique partnership to have me working in the schools. Just something brief is I grew up in Beersford, South Dakota, and the population is a little over 2,000 people. The school district here, they have 2,700-ish enrollment of kids. So it's much bigger than my hometown. And then also there are 300 faculty members as well. So I also do service the faculty members as well because when I'm in the school, they tend to ask me questions just regarding the job in general. But as always, though, I'm here for a purpose, and I do help out with calls for service to help alleviate some of the stuff that's officers from the streets. So I just have some brief numbers. These are just rough estimates. So we have a call for service, and right now I calculated since I've been in the school about 289 calls for service. Now I know that's an alarming number, but what I want to emphasize is that when I say call for service, we document, like when we do school lockdown drills, fire drills, when I go and do a public speaking engagement at the elementary school, we generate a call for service for that as well. So I know that's a large number, but a lot of times too, it's maybe just talking to a parent just about a situation that happened at school, so not always necessarily a bad thing. I did do about 92 case reports out of that 289, so that just means that I've actually generated a report with follow-up or an investigation and stuff like that. We had 22 arrests and then also about 35 citations. That's primarily the vaping issue that some schools endeavor, but I am proud of our school district because they have us do a mandatory citation for the vapes. A lot of times, some other school districts in South Dakota, they don't do that, and I think they have a much worse problem by not doing that, but so kudos to them. Some things I deal with, though, is the truancy checks. We deal with thefts. There's some drugs, some vaping, assaults, harassments, protection order violations, sex crimes, terroristic threats, accidents, and then I do also follow-up interviews for those same similar crimes for the street patrol. So I've stayed very busy doing a lot of follow-up stuff. The cell phones, though, are a major concern. I've spent a lot of my time this year dealing with some of the cell phone stuff. But the list I just gave you, that doesn't happen at the school necessarily. I would say probably 90% of it just gets reported. to me at the school. And I think that's basically because students can trust an officer in the school versus just calling somebody off the street to report a crime. So, so that's the main thing. I also serve on a couple committees as well, which I think is beneficial to our city. One is ShowCap, which once a month I get with school administrators, and then also people from like Lewis and Clark Behavioral, and we get together and we talk about things that are going on in the school or juveniles in general outside of the school. So I have a large piece in that. I'm also on the community response team. So essentially, a judge will say, "Hey, a juvenile needs to be reviewed to see if they don't go to DOC or not, Department of Corrections." So I'm also established piece in that puzzle as well. Not always do I feel like a juvenile needs to be recommended to DOC. Maybe some mental health issues might be a thing. And then also I'm on the school safety, so I'm on a lot of the planning stuff at the high school, the middle school, elementary schools, as to how we can make the school safer, more cameras, etc. But other than that, I wanted to share a funny story. I shared it with the school earlier, but I had a parent that was going to give me a password to a juvenile cell phone, and she gave me the numbers that was associated with the password, and then she said the pound key. And this just tells you that I've been in the high school too much, where I said a hashtag, you mean? So that just tells you that I'm in the high school a lot. So, but yeah, I do share a lot of my time at the high school. I feel like sometimes I neglected the middle school a little bit, just given the calls for service for the high school. And then I'm primarily there to help maybe curb some drama, if you can imagine that, at high school. So we try to be proactive if we hear something that's going on in the school. Me and Mr. Bestie, who's my bestie at the high school, we really hammer out, talk to the kids and say, hey, we know about this already, so there's no need to fight or anything like that. So other than that, I am AL certified instructor now. So Mike Bergeson, when he was at the PD, he taught that. But Chief has already implemented that I will be getting together with the school district and other agencies within the city of Yankton to teach that. Pat Knowles also was certified as well. But other than that, if you guys have any questions for me.
I would just like to make a positive comment, as somebody who swims in the Yankton High School ecosystem as well as this city commission, and I had nothing to do with the decision to have an SRO. That was prior to me being on the commission. And it makes a huge difference, and you've spoken of so many tangible things, incidents that you deal with, the way you handle kids, parents, administrators, teachers. The one intangible that I think you haven't spoken about that I think is so critical and that I think you're doing such a good job with is building relationships in every one of those venues. And I think it was great foresight on the part of the commission ahead of us and on the part of the school board to say that it's time for Yankton to have an SRO, and I think we're utilizing it to the best of our ability. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of sentimental stuff sometimes with, you deal with the juvenile, it's a lot of maybe bad situations that they're in, but it is rewarding that you're in the middle of the hallway and a student comes up and gives you a hug, so you can tell that you're impacting them, their lives, and vice versa. So it's a very good feeling.
So I would just encourage you, if you see things where the city can be more of a resource to the school district, to please relay those to Chief Harris so we can, as a commission, work through those issues. We know that for our parents, it's important to have a safe and productive learning environment for their kids, and for those kids, when they look back and think about what growing up in Yankton was like, we want them to have good memories, so they have reason to come back and stay with us at some point.
Yeah. My wife, she went to high school here, and she said back then she thought an SRO would have been beneficial when she was there. So Mason would maybe know that. Yeah, so maybe she wasn't referencing you, but yeah.
I also appreciate your sense of humor. I've seen you in some funny photos.
Yeah, that was a sneak peek of many photos maybe to come later on. I don't know, but yeah, it was just a good icebreaker, I thought. My daughter was very disappointed that I took her book bag, though, so it was returned, so it wasn't reported or anything, but. But
Any
on that,
more questions?
I appreciate everything. Thanks.
Thank you for your time and your work. We appreciate it. All right, anyone else in the audience? If you have anything you'd like to address to the commission that is not on tonight's agenda, please step to the podium. Seeing no movement, we will move on to the consent agenda. Number one is establish June 24th, 2019 as the date for the public hearing on the request for a special events retail on-sale malt beverage license for September 21st, 2019 from Heritage Homes, Inc. at 509 Pine Street, and that is for a yard party. Number two is consideration of memorandum 19-127 recommending approval of the application from Lewis and Clark Theater for a transient merchant license for July 27th, 2019. And that is the consent agenda. What is your pleasure?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion of the consent agenda items? Does anyone in the audience like to address the commission on these items? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Thank you very much. Moving on to old business. It's consideration of memorandum 19-130 regarding the request for a special events on-sale liquor license for June 18th, 2019 from the Chamber of Commerce's Egg Gala. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Moser.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hoffman.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye. Motion passes. Number two under old business is consideration of memorandum 19-131 regarding the request for a special events malt beverage on-sale retailer's license for July 1st, 2019 from the center at 900 Whiting Drive. What is your pleasure?
I'll move the memorandum. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hoffman.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Moser.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye. Motion passes. Number three under old business is consideration of memorandum 19-132 regarding the request for a special events malt beverage on-sale retailer's license and a special on-sale wine retailer's license for June 15th, 2019 from the center. What is your pleasure?
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hoffman.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Moser.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye. Motion passes. Number four under old business is consideration of memorandum 19-133 regarding the request for a special events malt beverage on-sale retailer's license and a special on-sale wine retailer's license for September 21st, 2019 from the center. What is your pleasure?
Move the memorandum.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Benson.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hoffman.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Moser.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to new business. Number one is consideration of memorandum 19-114 regarding Summit Activity Center rental rate increase for 2021. What is your pleasure?
Move the memorandum?
Second. We have a motion and a second. Amy, would you like to give the public some detail on this plan to increase rates?
Sure. As you all know, this recommendation is a result of the city and school committee that meets together on an as-needed basis. We discussed some time ago to have a ongoing rate increase. The proposed rates are actually for 2021, and the reason why they increase now is so that we're able to communicate that to potential users. The rate increase is approximately 3%, and those would become effective July 2021. So there is a chart there to reflect all the various rates for the different spaces, but essentially we set forth jointly with the school to have that rate projection so people can plan, because many of the events are annual events, and so they can plan what expenses they may have in terms of the rental.
Is there any more commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address, oh, Jake?
Excuse me, I have a question. What are we currently, or can I find it here?
Well,
What rates?
each space is different depending upon which rate it is, which area that the individual or the group is renting. The committee did some research. They compared private space, so some of the other event spaces in the community, as well as other similar type spaces, and tried to come up with something that would be affordable, but yet cover the costs of janitorial services and those types of things. The school, a couple of years ago, did employ either another FTE or a part-time employee, I can't remember which, because many of these events were happening on the weekends and over holiday weekends, and so this individual that was working with the school, I'm not sure if he's still there, if he has retired since then, but it was just too much for one individual, and so they actually hired, so some of that cost is offsetting that as well, but also to stay competitive, and also rates were set to with the hope that when we do have repairs and upgrades to the building, which are going to happen because all those systems and sound systems and equipment's getting to be 20 to 25 years old now, that those could be offset. So I can try to answer specific questions about the spaces, if you have one.
Is there any more commission discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Sirdike.
Aye.
Hoffner.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Moser.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber. Benson.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 2 under new business is consideration of memorandum 19-129 and resolution 19-26 regarding a request by Lewis and Clark Theater for special events parking ordinance number 933 to be in place during their event on July 27th, 2019. And I believe this is a trunk sale event. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item?
What are we selling? I mean, it's like a trunk sale. We're selling a trunk.
Whatever's in your trunk. No.
Selling trunks?
This is the similar event that took place last year in conjunction with Rock and Rumble, where folks, doesn't technically necessarily have to be out of the trunk of your vehicle, but it certainly can be, where you can sell either things you've made or things that you've bought that you don't want anymore, or all kinds of things. So people will actually line up there, and my understanding, it was quite a success last year, and people wanted it back. So
You pretty much said it. It's basically like a vendor fair just on the street, and some sell out of their trunk. They kind of put a display in their trunk, and some set up a table and have at it.
Like edible or?
I'm not sure. I would say I don't think that they have limited it, but I think from what I've seen in photos, it's mostly tangible items like necklaces or refurbished furniture, that sort of thing.
Brittany, how many vendors do you anticipate?
They have not given me a number yet. Last year, I believe they had between 20 and 25 vendors, and I think that they were, they kind of, from talking to Jared Anderson, who is the director at the Lewis and Clark Theater, he was projecting it would be around the same. They didn't anticipate it to grow too much this year, especially because it's their first year taking it on. Last year, it was facilitated by Kathy Clodworthy as a fundraiser for Harvest Halloween. This year, it is a fundraiser for the Lewis and Clark Theater, and they're going to also use this time to kind of help promote the theater and pre-sale any show tickets that they have coming up.
Is there any more commission discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Number 3 under new business is consideration of memorandum 19-135 and resolution 19-27 regarding a request by Discovery Church for special events parking ordinance number 933 to be in place during their event on June 23rd, 2019. What is your pleasure?
Move the memorandum. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? This is for a singing event at the church, correct? Putting on by Connecting Cultures?
Yep, so there's going to be an event inside the church, kind of a concert type event, and then they're going to utilize the street closure as a picnic portion of their event. So we'll have catering inside, and then picnic tables will be outside where guests and the public can take their food outside and just enjoy the nice weather, hopefully.
Now,
Knock on wood.
I do see on the street closure map that we got that they are not closing the street in front of their building, but to the side.
To the side
Correct?
on Walnut, correct? Yep, because they actually bought the open space, which used to be Stockwell's, just east of their building, so they are expanding. And so if construction goes as planned, they're going to be utilizing that new space as their catering area and kind of a kickoff to this new space that they have.
Any more commission discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. There being no further business on tonight's agenda, I would ask for a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.